Don't be so hard on yourself. It is normal to feel hurt or sad when rejection comes about. It will help you to see that difficulty or rejection in a different way. What could also help is also to think about what is the next step. Like, how do you move on from that rejection or tough time?
Welcome to Shiko, Olivia.
Thank you, Shreya.
Can you share a bit more about yourself?
So I'm Olivia. I'm a filmmaker who's based in Singapore, and I'm Indonesian who's been living in Singapore for 20 plus years right now. How I got into filmmaking, it's also been a very interesting and not so straightforward kind of path, because I initially started with photography when I was 15, but I felt that photography was like, as a medium, is very limiting in terms of the stories that I want to tell. So I started learning videography, filmmaking, and I wanted to go to film school, but my mom was like saying, no, don't. She encouraged me to go to business school instead. So I went to business school, but I was still very passionate about wanting to go into filmmaking even more. So I was doing workshops, like taking any kind of opportunities to be involved in the university's video club, any ways that I could learn like filmmaking. And after graduating from university, my mom told me that, okay, you can do whatever you want. Like, I'm very supportive of you. So after university, I tried to apply to like production companies and production houses. But because they saw that I was a business student and I didn't have any official background in terms of like filmmaking or communication studies, like I got a lot of rejections. So that resulted in me finding my own ways to make my own film projects. I guess that's where the business school, the things that I learned in business school, they became like really handy in terms of like bringing projects together, bringing people together, figuring out all the logistics, making the projects happen. And now I have produced like a few short films, ranging from live action short films to my most recent film, which is an animated comedy short film. It's called She and Her Good Vibrations. So it's about a middle-aged woman who discovered the wonders of a vibrator. So I'm wearing the shirt of the film. It's literally this woman sitting on top of a vibrator rock, and she looks very happy. So it's like very comedic in tone. We wanted to break taboo around like female sexuality and masturbation in the film. That's why we make it very comedic. We use a lot of metaphors and surrealism to explore the topic. And I think lately I've been very passionate about telling like female driven stories, so like female focused issues. So like, I guess like female masturbation would fall into that. But even like the project that I'm currently producing is called My Dear Little Red Monster, which is around menstruation. So that one is focusing on breaking period stigma and empowering young audience entering puberty.
What are currently the themes that you get attracted to again and again when you're in your creative zone?
I think there could be more stories of films that center around female experiences. It is something that maybe growing up, I didn't realize that it was missing, because I think when I was watching films that like recognized that won a lot of awards in the past, and when I went to IMDb and they recommend like the top 200 films that you must watch. I only realized much later that a lot of the films are like directed by male directors. And I think only maybe when I started watching more films by female directors that I realized that, oh, how come I've never seen these experiences or stories told in the film before? Like, it took me such a long time to discover them. So I think it is important to tell these stories, particularly like female driven stories or female stories that are focused on female issues, because I think a lot of women would be able to really relate to it. and it will help to make them feel less alone. I guess sometimes it's like for example, for She and Her Good Vibrations, I mean, to give like the context, what inspired me to make that film. So there was like a university friend who went to Thailand, and then she went to the night market there, and then she bought hair massager, and she gave one to me because it was on 1 for 1 deal. And then the hair massager turns out to be a vibrator, because in Thailand it's illegal to sell vibrators. So that's how like they labeled it. Basically, when I was like using the vibrator, and then basically it broke down like after 1 month later, I think I felt very embarrassed to share that story, because I feel that there's still a lot of stigma around like female sexuality. But back then, because I was going to an acting school and they were doing like real life story showcase, and at that time, there's one edition that they were looking for real life stories around the theme of cravings. And then I was like, should I submit this story or not? I was very hesitant, right? Because I was so scared that other people would judge me. But I'm like, I think I just submit it. And then when I read it and I saw like my acting teacher like laughing, and like the audience, especially the women, they were like laughing so loudly, I realized that, oh, actually a lot of people could really relate to this story. But I think a lot of these women, even after the reading, and then some of them came up to me and then they shared with me that, oh, I still even feel uncomfortable talking about these things with my good friends. So I think by sharing these stories, I feel that I hope that I could like empower more people. What they go through, their experiences, it's normal.
You've shared how powerful storytelling is.
Yeah.
How is it that you're bringing storytelling that you're talking about are still considered taboo? Like
Yeah.
you said that it was illegal to sell vibrator in a country like Thailand, and it's difficult to think because Thailand just comes across among Southeast Asian countries
Yeah.
a lot more progressive in a lot of aspects, and then there is a ban on this.
Yeah.
So culturally,
Yeah.
you're Indonesian, based in Singapore, just different Asian cultures as well.
Yeah.
How do you think that these topics that are most necessarily to be spoken about,
Yeah.
to be normalized,
Yeah.
to think about your pleasure as well, to think about if I have ovaries and uterus and if my womb has the power of creating a child,
Mhm.
it would bleed.
Yeah.
And just normalizing that
Yeah.
fact as well. Like everyone talks about reproduction, pregnancy, and everything, but nobody talks about
Yeah.
the days when you're not pregnant,
Yeah.
which you're trying to explain through the next movie
Yeah.
that would be launched.
Yeah.
How is it that you're bringing storytelling together and also also sort of balancing the cultural norms that are there?
Yeah. I think that's something that I it's interesting. By going into animation, I realized that the potential to explore this kind of stories, it became really wide. Like I think for example for She and Her Good Vibrations, I was having that idea of making it into a film after the real life story showcase, but it took me like a few years to realize that it has to be in animation format, because there happened to be that time there was an animation storytelling lab run by this festival called Cartoons Underground, and it connected the dots in my head. I'm like, this has to be in animation format. Because I think to explore female sexuality but in a live action format, I think it will be a very completely different feeling. Like learning from my experience making my first short film, which is a romantic drama called Just Because We're Friends. There's like a intimate scene, like, the two characters like, on the bed and stuff, and they were like very awkward with each other. And when I was watching that film with the audience, I could feel how the audience also starting to feel very awkward. But then when I compared this to when I go for the screening of She and the Good Vibrations, and I would just stand at the corner just to observe like how the audience react. I feel that that format of animation, it creates like a safe distance between the audience and the subject, so like they could just follow along and laugh along like the character's journey in animation. So I think maybe it comes across like safer and more approachable for the audience to explore the topic. And because we can also use like a lot of metaphors or surrealism to explore the subject, I think that's where we can infuse a lot of fun and stuff. So for example, for Shiana Good Vibrations, like a metaphor that I tend to use to describe female orgasm is like being on top of a roller coaster. But just imagine like having to shoot that in a live action film with like real actors. I don't know, like I think it would be quite difficult to execute, but because we are doing it in animation format, like we can like really go wild with this. Likewise for the film that's like focusing on menstruation that I'm doing right now, My Dear Little Red Monster. I think animation is also the perfect medium to tell that story because with fantastical approach, we can, for example, include some scenes where, how to say, the female protagonist, which is this girl in like a middle school student, she gets swallowed up by the blood blobs that she had like a fantastical journey inside like her body, inside her uterus, to help her understand what is going through like her body, like the changes and stuff, and to be like less hard on herself. So I think, yeah, it's not something that with live action that you can do. I think that's what makes animation a very powerful storytelling medium. So I think for me as creative now, as I continue to grow, I think it's very interesting to see, like for example, in telling like the story, in choosing which is the perfect medium to tell the story,
Mm.
which would make it unique but also relatable to like more audiences. Yeah.
There are lots of dots that have connected for you,
Yeah.
lots of butterfly effect
Yes.
that you've experienced. And one thing that I believe what your mother said, go to business school because that paid off. And it's only as an adult you look back and you realize that, oh my God, they were right all along, right? So you've been to business school, you've now transitioned into storytelling, filmmaking, doing these productions, going for film festivals.
Yeah.
How did that transition occur for you? Because you did experience a lot of rejection as you get. What made you seamlessly, now that it looks back, it sounds very seamless, but what kept you motivated through the journey of transition?
I think, yeah, it's like what you were saying, like on hindsight, it looks so smooth, but there were just like so many like bumps. I think, of course, like rejections can be hard to deal with, but I think what kept me going, looking back, I think was maybe watching other short films from my peers. It can be motivating in a good way, but it can be motivating in a funny or like terrible ways. Like if it's in a good way, I'm like, wow, like, like to let me feel inspired. Oh my gosh, like if the person can do this, I also want to tell that kind of story. The flip side will be like when the movie is so bad, then I'm thinking, oh, shit, I do better than that person. So I guess it works both ways. I'm also quite lucky in that I think over the years going for workshops and talks, just being able to meet other filmmakers and stuff, I think they become like my sort of like my community, I guess. Like whether like if I have any questions or anything, I could turn them for answers or like for support. And I think even to grow together with this community, whether because some will produce works over the years, so you also see them grow as a artist over the years. Then they also kept me going. Oh, I also want to make more works also. So yeah, I think those were the two things that kept me going. And oh, and also of course the support of my mom. I think that's been there throughout as well.
Olivia, if there's one piece of advice or one wisdom thing that you feel that someone who is navigating a tough change, could be a tough conversation,
Yeah.
or a tough experience, given the power of storytelling, you've been able to showcase those tough conversations outside. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is experiencing that?
I think going through any kind of tough experience, don't be so hard on yourself. I think it is normal to feel hurt or sad when rejection comes about. So it is also okay to just sit with the pain, to give yourself that space just to see the pain and stuff. But I guess, I don't know, some people say time heals all wounds. I don't agree with that all the time, but it does heal some wounds, right? So I think as some time has passed, I think it will help you to see that difficulty or rejection in a different way. But I guess, what could also help is also to think about what is the next step. Like, how do you move on from that rejection or tough time, right? Because, yeah, I mean, you can sit with it for a long time and sometimes you're like, oh no, complaining to others and stuff, right? But then I think it can also be good motivate factor to think of like, okay, if this is what happened, the door has closed for this one, what can I do next? Yeah.
So feel, reflect, and action on it.
So I'm very excited to share that She and Her Good Vibrations is now on YouTube and Vimeo, so people can watch the film. I'm also selling the film's t-shirt, which if you're watching this in the video, you can see like how cute it is.
Very cute.
It's like this woman on top of a vibrator rocket, celebration of like sex positivity and like female masturbation. If you really like the shirt and want to buy it, I think there'll be a link in the bio, right?
Thank you so much for sharing, Olivia. I've enjoyed learning more about you and your journey.